So, Dadman, this brings us to our last topic of the day: the future of Final Fantasy. So we kind of led into it a little bit with your multiversal theory there from Final Fantasy 16. But
Mm-hmm.
in your words, what do you believe the current assessment is for Final Fantasy as a franchise? Where are they at? And more importantly, what do you think their success blueprint needs to look like? Because I think the one thing we can both agree on is that they are no longer on top of the world. Like, they are still
No,
relevant, but they are not on top of the world. So, what is the current assessment for you, and where do you think they need to go?
it's such a tough question to answer because as a selfish fan, as a gamer, as somebody who has grown up with the franchise and still enjoys the franchise now, the easy answer for me is just go back to your roots. Just give us what worked and just give it to us more consistently. Obviously, I don't expect a brand new Final Fantasy game every year because of the the way technology has advanced so much. These things take time, but I don't want to wait 5 years in between titles. Like 16 came out 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And we have heard nothing about Final Fantasy 17. Nothing. So that to me is a problem. But also, like, that's the selfish fan in me. If I'm looking more in the business perspective and what's going to make them money, they need to connect with a broader demographic. They need to connect with the younger audience. They need their games to be streamed on Twitch. They need their games to get a lot of clout on social media. Um, they need that because, like you said, Square Enix is no longer the top dog. It hasn't been in a long time. And if you look at their roadmap the last couple of years, they've just made re-releases to existing games. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the hype this year was Dragon Quest 7. And listen, I'm a big Dragon Quest fan too, but you're just re-releasing an older game. They did the HD remaster for Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Now they have the reimagining for Dragon Quest 7. There's no new real property. And I'm okay with games being remade, but you also have the other school of thought where you have fans who have been clamoring for certain games to get remade and they're just ignored. Like, obviously, I would selfishly love a Final Fantasy VIII remake. That would be amazing. Why Final Fantasy IX hasn't gotten remake treatment yet, I have no clue. I think that should probably get a remake. You have games like Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is probably the greatest RPG of all time, like the greatest RPG ever made. Um, Objectively, it's not my opinion. It's just like if you look at people's lists, that's always like top three. Why hasn't that game got remade? But they're remaking Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Okay, fine. And then they're jumping to 7. But they remade 3 a couple. It's just like there's no consistency with your direction here, right? Um the other thing too is you have your backup franchise with Kingdom Hearts. Like, I don't know if you've played any of the Kingdom Hearts games, but Kingdom Hearts is also a very successful franchise that started going downhill after Kingdom Hearts 2. Especially now with licensing and different IPs. What made Kingdom Hearts so popular was the merger of Final Fantasy characters with Disney characters. That's what made it appealing to people. And on paper, people were like, that's not going to work, but it worked because you got 1 and 2 and you got prequels and you got sequels and then you got 3. But now Kingdom Hearts 4 has no Disney ties to it. It's just Kingdom Hearts. It's its own IP now. But they also took Final Fantasy characters out of Kingdom Hearts 3. There was no Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3 from what I was told. I didn't play Kingdom Hearts 3. So there's a lot of difficulties with how big these IPs have become where they can't just say, yeah, let's just do everything because they can't anymore. That's not how it works. But if I'm being honest, if they figured out a way to do this multiverse thing, because that's what's really big in pop culture right now, if they figured out a way to do this multiverse thing and they got a lot of buzz about it, not only are you going to attract the older fans, but you're going to attract a lot of the newer fans that have grown up with the MCU being a multiversal story. So Yeah, I mean, I would love to sit in a room with them and just have a conversation and see, like, I mean, obviously that would never happen, but just to see where their heads are at as a fan of the franchise for a long time, um, because it's concerning to me that um, this company started by throwing a Hail Mary, became a juggernaut, and is now kind of getting phased out. So I don't want to see Final Fantasy disappear. I still want it to be a thing, but they definitely need to, they definitely need to pick up the pace a little bit.
So I'm in total agreement, and so I'm gonna try not to like. I'm very passionate about this specific topic because I love these games. I love Square. I think that I think when you look at video games now, when you look at games like Clear Obscure, Expedition 33, you wouldn't get that without the roadmap that Square has laid out for RPGs, especially here in America, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so I say this because I love Square. I love the franchise of Final Fantasy, but you are stuck in a rut. You have a severe identity crisis, and I think it stems from the fact that you over the last 5 to 10 years have had some leadership changes in your executive
Mm-hmm.
offices that quite haven't hit, and that happens. I get that, right? But the problem is that you took away, at least it feels like it anyways, part of the thing that made Final Fantasy special, and that was allowing creatives to do their thing, giving us storylines that weren't mainstream necessarily. Like I know we're talking about the multiverse thing, but you spent years developing storylines that held a mirror up to the world and
Mm-hmm.
forced us to look at issues that we didn't want to talk about, and us as adults, as kids, being informed about those issues, learning about Shinra, who was sucking the lifeblood out of the planet, and how that government 30 years later is way more relevant than it should be, from that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have stopped telling good storylines that allowed us to be able to be thought provoking. Final Fantasy 16, I love Clive, I love the storyline, like I enjoyed it all. But if you stack that story up against, stories of 7, 8, 9, 10, it's all Final Fantasy 16 is just another story about a guy going through his shit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was personal because I'm a guy who goes through my shit. I was
Yeah.
relatable to him, but like if you were trying to get like my wife to play Final Fantasy and she started with 16, she's gonna enjoy it because you gave us that Game of Thrones vibe, and she likes that Middle Earth type shit, but it wasn't a good story for her to
Mm-hmm.
be attached to for the next fucking 20 years like you did for us when we were entries into the Final Fantasy franchise. So quit fucking it up. Like I don't like telling a
Mm-hmm.
good story is hard to do. I get that,
Yeah.
but it's even harder when you don't allow your creatives to do their job and to do what made you successful. So I agree with you. Go back to what made you successful. Tell good, intriguing stories that held a mirror up to the world. I think there's two other things that they really need to do if they really want to make this thing successful is they have to revolutionize gaming again. Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10, these were all games that pushed the gaming genre forward. And I mean hell, PlayStation wouldn't be PlayStation if it hadn't been for Final Fantasy 7 and for Final Fantasy 10. Like we wouldn't have the juggernaut Sony has if it hadn't been for those two franchises. No one
Mm-hmm.
You are so irrelevant. And I hate to say this, you are so irrelevant. Sony's okay with not having exclusivity of your game anymore. Like that is how irrelevant you are as a industry. Like you're a moneymaker for sure, but you can't tell me that if you were really that top dog, Sony wouldn't be like, nope, you're sticking with us, right? Because
Yep.
it, you don't see the Last of Us franchise going anywhere. Like you don't see um you know Red Dead, or not, excuse me, not Red Dead, the Uncharted franchise, like Horizon Zero Dawn, like all these Sony made properties, that like they're stuck with Sony. And I get that Final Fantasy isn't a Sony product, but Sony has enough fucking money to be able to say, no, you're staying in house. You're staying with us. But they
Mm-hmm.
don't care. They don't care
Mm-hmm.
because they know that it's not as relevant. So you've got to be able to start moving the gaming industry forward. And I think you do that in one way, one huge way. You perfect turn based. Like we have had so many variations of turn-based combat over the years, and I agree with you. You've said this before on my channel, and I 100% agree. The best turn-based combat we've ever gotten was Final Fantasy X. You mix
100%.
Final Fantasy X with what Expedition 33 did and the
Oh my god.
theatrics of the game, man, that is, now you are the bar, right? You are the
Mm-hmm.
bar. But right now, when I think of turn-based combat, when I think of any combat, I'm thinking Expedition 33. And you're talking about an
100%.
independent studio who made the game at a third of the price that you make your fucking games. You are
Mm-hmm.
too big for your own success. Like, and you've got to bring it back down to what made you successful. To your point, Dadman. But I think the last one, and we've already hit this on the head about getting away from the titles, the numerical titles and things like that. There's an idea amongst Final Fantasy non Final Fantasy fans that they still don't know these are all individual self-contained stories. They think if you play Final
Right.
Fantasy VIII, you got to play the other 7 before you do that, right?
Correct.
And so get away from the numerical order, reboot your franchise. And I will tell you, I agree with you. I would love, the number one game I'd love to see remade is Final Fantasy VIII. I think there's so much story there, so much you can do there. You start with remaking Final Fantasy 1. You showed
Oh
in
yeah,
Final
that would be
Fantasy VII.
sick.
You showed in Final Fantasy VII that you can take a very streamlined story, because the original Final Fantasy VII was not near as complex as you've made this story in these remake trilogies. You can take very little and make it into a lot. You flush out Final Fantasy, the original, just no Final Fantasy One, none of that shit. Just your next release, Final Fantasy, and it is nothing but the core and the heart and the nostalgia that you got in 1987, and you bring that
Mm-hmm.
to real world graphics now. You bring that to innovative storyline and storytelling, character development, make us fall in love with these 4 warriors of light, and then give us the
Mm-hmm.
ability to be able to customize our journey the way you did in 1987. You are going to find yourself pushing the industry forward. But here's why you're not going to do that. Like Square, no one's listening to this. I get it. But if you are, this is why you're not going to do that, because you're too scared to. You're too
Yeah,
scared
that's
to.
what it is.
You're too scared. I heard that. I don't know if this is true or not, so I apologize if I'm giving out false information. But I heard that Final Fantasy 11 is still, like, you still have to pay a subscription in order to play it. So if that's the case, you are trying to squeeze out every fucking penny you can. And that's why you're scared to be able to push the gaming industry forward and do something with your franchise, because you're afraid you're going to lose money. And I'm sorry, but 39 fucking years ago, you said the hell with it. We're going to make the game we want to make. And if it's the last one we make, so be it. Here's Final
Yeah.
Fantasy. And it's what made you successful. Don't just throw everything out. I get it. Like, you've got your company, you have employees, you got to make sure that you're being financially responsible, but that doesn't mean you don't roll the dice every now and again. And you're at a point right now where no one cares about Final Fantasy 17, except for, like, idiots like you and I who love the franchise and
Mm,
we're going to play no
right.
matter what. But the
Right.
core audience, they don't care about Final Fantasy 17. They don't. And so
They
give
don't.
us Final Fantasy. Remake that first one. Whether you tie in all the stuff we're talking about, multiverse and stuff like that, that's obviously up to you. But remake Final Fantasy and start a whole new generation. Because if you do that, let's say Final Fantasy comes out, the original, they remake the original. Let's say they're in pre-production now with it. Let's say we get it in 4 years. So in 2030, Grayson, my Grayson, is going to be 9. That is a perfect entry point. That's where we
Mm-hmm.
started. That's where we started. Get him. Don't make it immature. Like, don't like. I think you need to make sure that it is. It doesn't have to be E for everyone, but it doesn't need to be
T
Game
for
of
teen.
Thrones.
That's
Yeah,
safe.
exactly. Um, but you have an opportunity to bring in a whole new franchise, and then guys like us, oh yeah, we're gonna fuck it. You're gonna remake Final Fantasy 1. They take my money.
Sign me up.
It
Take my
is yeah,
money.
day one drop, 100%. I'm taking a week's vacation to play that fucking game.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things I honestly think that they need to do. I think they need to get back to innovative storylines, and how you do that in a Final Fantasy 1 remake. I think there's so many different ways you can, but you need to get to a story that holds a mirror up to the world. You need to push the gaming industry forward by perfecting turn-based combat, and you remake Final Fantasy 1. That if I'm sitting in the office of Square Enix, I'm like, hey, this is my three pillar plan for success here. And then they're going to tell me you're a fucking idiot, get lost. We're gonna, remake Final Fantasy 13. So like, which no one's asking for, right? That's what they're gonna do. So I don't know. I Dad man, what do you think? What, like, do you in 4 years from now, when we finally get some news about a new Final Fantasy title, are they listening to us? What are they doing?
It's so funny because a couple of the things that you said right now, like I hadn't really thought about, but like I think I think the world that we're in right now with like the AI and RAM and storage bubble, I know it makes it difficult, for developers, especially like, gaming and stuff like that. Like they're raising the prices of the PS5s and all that. Like I get all that. As a consumer, it sucks, right? But I think you need to get back to like what we said earlier. You need to get back to what works. And, we did a podcast a while back, talking about the first Final Fantasy game and how it was like their Hail Mary because it was make or break for them. I think they need that sense of urgency again. I think they need that desperation again. They need to feel what that's like, because out of that desperation came Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
And it was a juggernaut. Like Square just kind of took over RPGs. Like, yeah, you had Dragon Warrior, which is now Dragon Quest, but they didn't have that. It was first person. It was like first person view on the enemy, not that side scroller type shit. Um, so I think you go back to that, and I might get flack for this, but I think the console exclusivity thing is super important too. Like, I think, like you said, if you want to be relevant, like it sounds horrible, but like you want your game to be so good that you're forcing people to go buy the game because they have to. It's one of those games like you have to play this game. So, okay, well, how do I play this game? Well, you can only play it on a PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then I know it's like the idea sounds completely backwards to what we as gamers want. Like we want availability and we want easy access, but there was a time where you didn't have that. You had to make your choice. You had to choose between Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. Like you had to choose. Now, granted, the financial landscape was totally different, where it was feasible to be a multi-console household. Like I grew up on Sega, and then Sega kind of went away, and then it was Nintendo for a little bit. But when the PS1 came out, I had every single Sony console. I didn't miss any in between. I had one, two, three, four. I had five, and then my secondary console. There was a secondary console, and one year was the Nintendo GameCube, and the next year was the Xbox. So it forced you to have multi consoles because of the exclusivity. Now, the only companies that still do that are Nintendo and Sony.
Yeah.
Microsoft is completely out of that. Like they don't do exclusivity anymore. And we see what has happened. It's completely killed Microsoft. So I think if you get back into that world of exclusivity again, I think it shows people that you're taking it seriously. Like, listen, we understand that you don't have a PlayStation, but if you want to play this new Final Fantasy game, you're gonna have to get a PlayStation. Or you're gonna have to wait a year for us to put a PC port out. Because that's what they do with everything now. So I'm okay with kind of going back to that if it's going to propel Final Fantasy back to relevancy. If it's just for a cash grab, then I can care less. But I think you need to go back to the roots. I think you need to go back into doing what works. I think you need to think about exclusivity again. And you know what? Talking about all this multiversal travel stuff, people forget the original Final Fantasy was a time travel story.
Yep.
There is no reason the Warriors of Light can't be your vessel for your multiversal story. And there's no reason that the Warriors of Light can't branch off into different worlds of Final Fantasy to try to piece the multiverse back together.
Could you imagine? Okay, so all right, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but my
You're
mind was
good.
just blown. So there's four crystals in Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy movie, or Final Fantasy game. And for those of you who haven't played it, basically your journey is going to collect those four crystals, and then you find out that no, you got to travel through time and you got to jump ahead 2,000 years, right? What if Final Fantasy 1, the remake, and to retrieve each one of these crystals, similar to the Infinity Stones, and how if you pluck one out of a certain timeline, the timeline branches. If every crystal, you don't have to do every entry of the Final Fantasy universe, but if Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10, and Final Fantasy 16 were all represented one of your four crystals, and you had to go interact with those worlds, and that's what ultimately branched in your, like, bro, that would just, like, to me, and then you have the opportunity to be able to enhance the storyline of a game that the story is pretty simplistic in Final Fantasy 1. It is. Get a chance to be able to enhance that. You bring in your multiverse together. You get your fan service by seeing some of these characters. But to your point, you get to make original characters, because in Final Fantasy 1, the characters, we made up the names. Like, they there's nothing
Right.
special about those characters.
There's
So
nothing special about them.
so you give us four characters that we love, and by the end of it, that we're so attached to, and then you fucking do something crazy like kill one of them off. Like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, it just, like, that just seems like an amazing way to be able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible too, because if you look at the, and it always blows my mind, right? If you look at the Black Mage sprite from Final Fantasy 1, it's Vivi.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
essentially Vivi, like it's the same thing, right? So what's stopping you there? Your White Mage sprite from Final Fantasy 1, you're playing Final Fantasy 9. So the first time you see Garnet, she has that hood
yeah,
with the red trim on it. That's your White Mage. So it's definitely possible to just get a good group of writers together and just be like, listen, how do we fix this for 2028, let's say, or let's say 2030, whatever the 40-year anniversary of Final Fantasy 1 is 2027. That's the 40-year anniversary. So that's next year.
yeah,
Your time's a ticking, because there is no better time. The stars are aligned. There's no information in the pipeline right now. You know we're gonna get the third part of Final Fantasy 7 sometime this year in 2026, probably going into the early 2027. But what if you end 2027 with, boom, here's your reboot. You fuckers were talking shit about us. Here it is, 40th anniversary of Final Fantasy 1. We're rebooting the entire franchise. We have this whole new outlook. We're gonna go back to what works. We're gonna listen to the fans. We're gonna include everybody, the old heads and the new heads. And I think there's no better time to do that than within the next year or two, because Square loves doing shit when they hit milestones. They
yeah.
love their milestones. They fucking love their milestones. So what better milestone than the 40th anniversary of the longest running anthology series? You put a bookend on your you put a bookend on your piece of history with Final Fantasy 16. That is your little blip. That's over. Now here's this new fresh coat of paint on it. And like you said, you make us give a shit about, well, it's six characters really, because you had the warrior, the
Yeah.
monk, the black mage, the white mage, the red mage, and the thief. So it's six characters. You give us the six original warriors of light, and there are six crystals, because there's water, fire, or there's the ice crystal, the fire crystal. Yeah, water, fire, earth, and wind. And then you have the black crystal, which is the darkness crystal,
Yeah.
and you have the holy crystal, or whatever, the light crystal. So you have six crystals. And yeah, I mean, it could be a fetch quest. The first part of the game, you do the whole spiel. You go fight Garland, you save the princess, you activate the first four. But when you go back in time to fight the original Garland and kill him off before he loops, something happens. You get separated, and here, oh shit, the warrior ended up in uh, Final Fantasy VII land, and the black mage ended up in Final Fantasy 9 land, because he looks just like fucking Vivi. There's so
Mhm.
many ways to do it, and it's not impossible, but they have to want to do it. That's what it
Yeah.
is. And that's a big risk that they're probably not going to take, like you said.
Man, it'd be great if they did. Listen, guys, this is the part of the episode where you have found your mogul. Mogul. We're gonna get this right. First episode, you found your mogul. Listen, which I think is a very unique save point for Final Fantasy IX. That's why I encapped it with this. So this is the part where we save our progress and we sign off. So, Dadman, it's been a pleasure. First episode with you, my friend. Where can people find you on
Oh yeah.
social media?
So you can check me out on YouTube. I haven't been posting as of recently. It's very busy in my household with baseball season, but once I can get some time, I have a lot of ideas in the pipeline that I'm pretty sure people are going to enjoy. But you can definitely check me out on YouTube. That's probably the main thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things on there for you guys to check out. But in until the meantime, just check us out here on the podcast, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And you can find me on social media platforms at the Batmandrew. And yeah, like this has been a great first episode. So, but it's all about you guys, the fans. So walk us through, what do you think of some of the fan theories? What do you think of the direction for Final Fantasy, and how do you like our thoughts about where the franchise should go? But more importantly, I want to hear what your entry point in Final Fantasy VII was, especially if it was not one of the mainstreams, if it wasn't number one, seven, eight, nine. Like, if your entry was Final Fantasy IV, I want to hear that. I want to hear why it was special to you, for sure. So drop those in the comments. Teaser for next episode. I'm thinking, we didn't plan any of this out in advance. That's how much we care about this podcast. We have nothing planned after this episode. Final Fantasy One review. Start
Yeah,
there.
that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start there for sure. Yep.
We'll start there. Final Fantasy One review, our deep dive into Final Fantasy One, and listen, despite the fact that it's a 40-year-old game, there's a lot to dive into in that game for sure. So, guys, signing off here. The light of the crystals may be dim, but listen, the data is written. So, for all the warriors of light out there, don't forget to make sure you save your progress. This has been Materia Junction. Thanks, guys.